From the campus of Volunteer State Community College, this is Inside Politics.
Welcome to Inside Politics. I'm Grady Eades. Our fall series of programs introducing you to the candidates for governor in 2010 continues today with our guest, Lieutenant Governor Ramsey from Blountville, who is seeking the Republican nomination. Welcome back to our show.
Good to be here. Been several times. Always love doing shows like this, in particular here at Vol State. You always have interesting shows. I love doing it, Grady.
Well, we love having you here. Since some of our viewers may not know you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, I was born and raised in Northeast Tennessee. This always gets people oriented when I say I was raised about 2 miles from Bristol Motor Speedway. Grew up on a small farm there, literally milking cows and raising tobacco, and worked my way through college. Became a licensed surveyor, started my own business when I was 25 years old. Literally with a pickup truck and a prayer, working out of a rented house. My wife doing the work in the office and I doing the work out in the field. When I was 30 years old, I started my own real estate and auction company, and that's still what I do today. 23 years later, we still have auctions just about every Saturday. My brother has now retired from a job he had driving a truck for Roadway, and he's working with me full time. That helps me out while I'm running for governor. But probably 2 or 3 weekends a month right now, I'm still back in Nashville conducting those auctions. I ran for office for the first time in 1992, kind of accidentally got in politics. I was Nashville for Realtors Day on the Hill, and I was president of the Bristol Association of Realtors at the time. Had never seen the legislature in action, never met my state representative before. I'm not one of these politicians that from the day I was born thought I'd be in elected office. Maybe about as close as I'd ever been involved in politics was having a Ronald Reagan bumper sticker on my truck, probably in 80 and 84. That's about it. And I got elected to the House in 92, the Senate in 96, and then decided that I wanted the Republicans to have a majority in the state Senate. The Republicans hadn't had a majority literally since the Civil War. And I got out and started recruiting candidates and raising money all across the state. And right here where we are in Sumner County of Vol State, one of those candidates in 2004 was Diane Black, who's now caucus chairman, Jim Tracy down in Bedford County. We got that first Republican majority, and then of course, here in the state of Tennessee, we did this a little differently from any other state besides West Virginia. We in West Virginia are the only two that you get elected as Speaker of Senate, and if you're Speaker of the Senate, you're also / Lieutenant Governor. And so my colleagues in January the 9th, 2007, elected me to be the first Republican Speaker of the Senate in 140 years. There's only been one ever before me, a fellow named DeWitt Center. I've got his portrait on my wall in my office to remind me that was the last Republican Lieutenant Governor, Speaker of the Senate before me. He served from 1867 to 1869. So when I got reelected this year on January the 12th, 2009, I became the longest serving Republican Lieutenant Governor in the history of the state. There'd only been one before me, Grady. He served from 1867, as I say, to 1869, 2 years right during Reconstruction. You're a history professor. You know all about this. And there's a little time period right after the Civil War that the carpetbaggers that came down and kind of took over our state government, and we had a lot of Republicans elected during that time period. But the House had never been Republican. I helped last year orchestrate the takeover of the state House too by Republicans, traveling across the state, speaking engagements, helping people raise money. When they got there, that was the first elected majority of the Republicans in the state House of Representatives in history. So last few years have been history making. Of course, I decided I wanted to run for governor just a few months back. It's kind of a crowded field. Obviously, Governor Phil Bredesen can't run again. He's term limited out. So there's 5 of us on the Republican side, about that many on the Democrat side. So obviously, I think with my experience as Lieutenant Governor, I've been Lieutenant Governor for 3 years, been in the state legislature for 17 years now, that my experience sets me apart from the other candidates, as well as my experience in business. I'm the only person in this race that started not 1 but 2 small businesses from scratch, as I mentioned, and I understand what it's like to make a payroll. I remember when I first started my surveying business, I always keep my surveying crew out of the office. We'd be working out in the field after 5 o'clock on Friday because I was always short of money because the way things work if you're a small business person. If I wrote them a check after 5 o'clock on Friday, they couldn't cash it till Monday morning back then. That gave me all weekend to gather up the money. So I have the experience not only in the private sector but also in government. I also have a vision where I wanted the state of Tennessee to be. Now, I think that we're right on the edge of taking Tennessee to the next level, and I want Tennessee to be that destination state where every business wants to locate and where everybody wants to raise their family. And we can do that with the policy that I want to set forth as being governor.
So is the reason why you decided to run for governor is because you have this vision, and do you think that you can make that?
Absolutely. I mean, there are things that I've been a little bit frustrated with as lieutenant governor and a state senator and representative, the things I couldn't do in education, K through 12 and higher education, and other areas where I think you need that governor to be that salesperson, because that's what you are. When you're a governor, you are the figurehead. You are the face of the state of Tennessee. When you're recruiting industry and you're going out there, you need someone who's good at sales, and I'm pretty good at that. Be able to sell our state has been a low tax state, a no income tax state. I'll keep it a no income tax state, a place to do business. Business Tennessee magazine, kind of the premier business magazine in Tennessee, has ranked me the most pro-business legislator. And there are people that think if you're pro-business, you're anti-worker, which I don't know how you can be pro-business. That's impossible to be. You got to have the business, you got to have the employer to have the employees. I think I can figure that one out. And so I think I have that vision to take us to that next level in several areas.
Well, let me ask you this. In any campaign, name recognition and money are both very important. Mm-hmm. How important are each in this lengthy race for governorship?
Let's talk about the lengthy race first. It is a lengthy race. I'm going to tell you this, it's what really happened on the Republican side in particular. Back in 1st of February, Bill Frist called all of us, and we thought maybe a candidate, and said that he's not running for governor. And we were all kind of waiting around when that happened. When that happened, that kind of opened the floodgates. I mean, it's way too long, Grady. I mean, we're talking about almost 2 years that you're campaigning, starting last February. I saw Winfield Dunn Saturday night, and he's told me this before, but just hit home. I was at a little event here in Nashville, and he's talking about when he announced his candidacy in April. We're talking about next April, 3 months before the primary. This just keeps getting longer and longer and longer. It is a marathon, not a sprint. That is the case. But so obviously that gives you a time when you have to build up name recognition, and more importantly is the money. On that same note, Winfield Dunn actually wrote a book called From a Standing Start. I'm on the dust cover, a little talking about that book. Great book. And one other thing that's missing in that book is the fact about raising money. And back then, in 1970, when he ran for governor, there were no campaign limits, there were no disclosures. One person could write you a check, and you're done. And you didn't have to disclose that. I don't like the disclosure part, but I don't like the limits part either, because I think limits have done just the opposite of what it's supposed to do. The most anybody can give you is $2,500, so you spend your time after time after time. Any candidate spends more than half their time raising money. That's not what we should be doing, but it's a fact of life. Right. So in order to, you work toward getting that name ID through traveling around and meeting people and shaking hands and being lieutenant governor and things like that, but the power of television that we're on right now can't be dismissed, and you got to have that money in the last 2 or 3 months of the campaign to go on television. So it's that simple. So you'd like to, if I had my way, I'd spend 90% of my time shaking hands, going to barbecues, things like that, and 10% raising money, but that's not the way it works in real life now. Do
you think with a campaign that runs this long, 2 years, that too much money gets involved? That's a long time to be campaigning and trying to raise funds.
Yeah, absolutely, but I don't know exactly how you limit it, Grady. When we do have freedom of speech here and with our First Amendment. And so obviously, I don't know how you do that. So it just keeps getting a little more and a little more. When I first ran for office in 1992, back then you did go out, knock on doors, shook hands. Maybe you'd do a handmade mail out that you ran through the copy machine in my real estate office. And then it got to where you got professional mail outs. And you got, well, if they're going to do that, I'm going to do 7 mail outs. And then well, if they're going to do that, I'm going to get on television or radio. If we're going to do that, well, I'm going to get on cable television. If they're on cable television, I'm going to get on network television. Before you know it, it's blown up. And I don't see how you can limit it. The one thing I do disagree with are the campaign limits in general, and the fact that I'm for full disclosure. I think you ought to be, with today's world and today's internet, if you're willing to take $25,000 from somebody and take the heat for it, and that takes some time away from raising so much money and spending so much time doing it, but you disclose it within 48 hours on the internet and you're willing to take that heat, then do it. But because the limits don't work, you figure out ways to get around it, and it's silly. But the bottom line is, yes, you're exactly right. The length of the campaign and just the modern campaigns in general with television and other media has made it so expensive.